What are some of the scariest movies from the past decade? What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite horror movies from the past decade. So that would be from 2014 to 2024. And the way that this is going to work is I'm going to mention my favorite movie of that year, and then I might bring up some honorable mentions if there are any. So starting with 2014, this was an easy year for me because my favorite horror movie of this year was by far The Babadook. This is a fantastic psychological horror movie that has an amazing performance by Essie Davis, who plays the mother. The kid can be a little bit annoying here and there because he's always screaming, but aside from that, the movie overall is fantastic. It's not your typical horror movie that's filled with jump scares. It leans more into the dread and tension that it uses. If you're a fan of watching a movie and then going on YouTube and watching videos about that movie and going on a deep dive of this analysis about the film, this is the movie for you because it is filled with meaning and subtext, and I highly recommend you watch the video done by CZ's World about the horror history of the Babadook because he breaks it down perfectly. Alright, moving on to 2015, my favorite horror movie of that year was Hell House LLC. This is an awesome found footage horror movie which doesn't reinvent the genre by any means. However, they do find a creative way to use the genre to keep it fresh and unique. The scares are amazing. One scene in particular in this movie was horrific, and all the clowns in this movie are really creepy. As for honorable mentions this year, I had two of them, which would be Area 51 and Krampus. Obviously, I couldn't put Area 51 as my favorite horror movie of the year, but this is another very fun found footage horror movie, and if you like that genre, and especially if you like alien movies, then this movie is super fun to watch, at least in my opinion. And Krampus is another fun horror movie that takes place in Christmas, so those are my honorable mentions for 2015, but let's move on to 2016, which was a very tough year because there was a lot of good horror movies, but I had to put The Conjuring 2 for my number one spot because this is my favorite Conjuring movie of the entire franchise. I think it is the scariest. I think The Nun is at its best in this movie because it is super creepy and they utilize it perfectly in certain scenes. It is an exciting, emotional, and thrilling ride. The Conjuring 2 is an awesome horror movie. But as for honorable mentions this year, I had Terrifier, Lights Out, and Split. So Terrifier came out in 2016, so I had to mention it because those movies are insane, and I will talk about them more later on in this list. Next up, I had Lights Out, a very fun horror movie. If you haven't seen Lights Out, you definitely have to watch it. It is based on this horror short that's on YouTube that is very, very popular, and I think the movie is very good. And then obviously Split, one of James McAvoy's best performances with his 23 personalities in that movie. That maybe you don't consider it horror, but it is kind of creepy, and in many ways M. Night Shyamalan's comeback movie, you could argue. Now moving on to 2017, another very difficult year to choose a number one spot because for me it's going to be Get Out. This is not just a good horror movie, this is an amazing film. Super captivating, super intriguing, the acting is great, it keeps you on the edge of your seat for the entire movie, and the ending is just batshit insane. And when I saw this movie back in 2017, it blew my mind that it was directed by Jordan Peele. I was like, this is the guy from Key and Peele, the funny dude. How the hell did he direct one of the best horror movies I've ever seen? But as for honorable mentions for 2017, you obviously have to put It, one of the best horror movies ever made. As a matter of fact, it is the highest grossing horror movie ever made. The Ritual, and The Gracefield Incident. Now, The Gracefield Incident is another one of those very fun found footage horror movies because I love the found footage genre. Maybe not something that you're interested in because it's definitely not a great movie. It's just a fun movie because I'm obsessed with that subgenre. But The Ritual is a fantastic movie that I don't see a lot of people praise on the internet. It needs to be talked about more because this is a awesome movie from start to finish, and there is a really cool monster in this movie. The design is epic. It is like this eldritch god or titan or something like that called Motor. Oh my god, it's super creepy in the movie. You have to see it. And then obviously It, one of the best horror remakes of all time. You could even make an argument that this should be my number one pick, but I had to give it to Get Out. For 2018, I had A Quiet Place. This is another movie directed by someone that I know as the funny guy in The Office. But yes, John Krasinski directed A Quiet Place, and my god, that movie is amazing. Such a unique idea for a horror movie and such a mesmerizing theater experience. I mean, since it's so quiet throughout the entire movie, the tension in the room, I mean, you can hear a pin drop. The monsters are scary, the acting is great by Emily Blunt and John Krasinski and the kids. Now, as for honorable mentions for this year, I have Hereditary. Probably a lot of people would have that as their number one. great horror movie. I have Unfriended Dark Web, which I think is a underrated found footage horror movie. I know a lot of people trash this movie, but I highly disagree with those individuals. They can, I respect their opinion, but off, because that movie is amazing. It's super fun to watch. I stand by that. And then also Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, another found footage horror movie that a lot of people like, and if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. For 2019, I have another Jordan Peele movie, Us. Not as good as Get Out, definitely, but I still enjoy this movie. A lot of people crap on it. Once again, I disagree with those people because I think this movie is very entertaining. Not only that, it's very well filmed. The cinematography, the shots are spectacular. And I also didn't see that many horror movies in 2019. Like, my only honorable mention would be Brightburn, if you even consider that a horror movie, but it's like a scary take on Superman, and I actually really enjoy that movie. So that's pretty much it for 2019. So 2020 was a crazy year and a very sad year, so you can't blame me for having a crazy answer. Yes, it's a foreign movie. Put on your big boy pants and read the damn subtitles, okay? But my favorite horror movie of this year was Sputnik, a Russian science fiction horror movie. Oh my goodness. This movie is awesome. I'm being totally honest right now. Like, I am not exaggerating one bit. This is the best science fiction alien movie since Predator and Alien. Facts. Oh my god, I cannot give this movie enough praise. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it if you're a horror fan, and watch it just because it's a great movie. But for you guys out there that are never gonna watch a foreign movie, here are a couple English speaking horror movies for 2021 or 2020. First honorable mention is The Empty Man, a pretty cool take on cosmic horror, and this movie has one of my favorite scary cult scenes ever when he's out in the forest at night and he sees everyone out there moving and then they stop. Oh my god, that whole entire sequence right there is one of my favorite scary scenes from the last decade. It's so good. And then I also have Spree, which has Joe Keery, the guy from Stranger Things, and this is also another very fun found footage movie that I highly recommend. For 2021, I have VHS 94. This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time because it is a wild roller coaster from start to finish. It's not one of those movies that's going to ease its way into the horror or take time to build the characters. It's an anthology movie. It gets straight to the point, and I love it. Some of my favorite tapes in this franchise are in this movie, such as The Subject, such as Storm Drain. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I've talked at length about this movie on this channel multiple times, so I don't want to be repeating myself. Moving on to 2022, there are no runner-ups, there are no honorable mentions because there's only one horror movie to talk about that year, and that is Terrifier 2. This movie had such an impact on me when I watched it because up until this point I had no idea about who Art the Clown was. Like, I've never seen Terrifier, I've never seen All Hallows Eve, so I've never seen anything about this demonic clown until I heard about all the hype about Terrifier 2, people throwing up out of the theater, so I had to go see it. So I went into it completely blind, drank a whole bottle of white wine, maybe two, went by myself. Worst mistake because I shit my pants, man. Oh my goodness, that movie was the most intense experience I've ever had in a movie theater because I could not believe what I was seeing on the screen. Terrifier 2 is one of the most gruesome, gory, bloody, intense movies I have ever seen in my life, and I loved it. Moving on to 2023, I put Hell House LLC, The Carmichael Manor. This is the fourth installment in the franchise, and I think it's actually the best movie of the franchise. Yet again, another found footage movie, but I think it's done very well. The characters are very interesting, and it's not super gory, it's not bloody. This is a movie that actually is very safe to watch and just focuses more on your classic ghost jump scares, but you don't see anything too ultra violent, so that's actually kind of a cool plus in my opinion. But talking about movies that are really gory, my honorable mention for this year is Evil Dead Rise. I really had a blast with this movie. It has a standout performance by Alyssa Sutherland, who plays like the creepy mom. Oh my god, the makeup design on her was awesome. Her scary face and her creepy smile, and she was amazing as well in the movie. I think it's just a very fun watch. They've been doing awesome with the Evil Dead remake / reboots. It is really cool. And last but not least, for 2024, my favorite horror movie was Heretic. I have talked at length in my separate videos about this movie, but I thought this is one of the best written horror movies I've ever seen in my life, not just in 2024. Hugh Grant was amazing in the movie. The girls, Sophie Thatcher and the other girl, are awesome as well. But I think this is a movie that's gonna make you think. It's not just popcorn fun, it is profound. There's conversations to be had after this movie, so very interesting film. I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. And as for honorable mentions for this year, the complete opposite type of movie, it's Terrifier 3. Not a deep movie whatsoever, a turn your brain off and have some popcorn movie, but nevertheless a very fun Christmas horror movie, holiday themed horror movie, and I think art is at its best in this movie. So those are my favorite horror movies from the past decade. Now looking back on it, we've had a lot of good horror movies. I mean, my goodness, there were some good years, some bad years as well, to be expected. But thank you all so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments any horror movies that I missed. And as always, give this video a thumbs up to support me. If you want to support me any further, check out my Patreon. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.